Perfect. Okay. Now, I mean, I should say, I mean, a lot of what Tony has inspired me a lot over the years. I met him, I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago. And that was my first really contact with a social scientist. I still, I mean, there are a lot of things that he says that I still don't understand, but I'm trying hard. Again, I have to also say that he's trying to understand us. And I think that's part of the story, really. And I think part of the challenge that we have for us to be able to deal with this, with complex issues like the one that we have at the moment. So let me just move on to, I need to, I'm a bit disarranged here on my screen here with my stuff. Yeah, there, this is better, this is better. Okay. Okay, now, so what I mean, in fact, and the other thing is actually having worked for 17 years in the UK and with UK government, I mean, these issues about what government does and we as scientists, or I as a scientist in my very small specialist area, epidemiology, know, intrigued me or I don't know, also frustrated me at times, actually quite often, because I had views about what they should be doing, and then they didn't do what I thought they should be doing. And over the time, and that's also where Tony played a role, I realized it isn't just about epidemiology, there are lots of other things that play a role. And I've looked more into it, in this term of risk governance, I think is quite important there, in that it includes everything. I mean, it includes the stakeholders, it includes those that develop the policies, the scientists, those that are affected, those that are, I don't know, spent money on it, etc., the media and so on. So just looking at it, so we've got the risk of a hazard, and then we've got some activity that is being put into place to actually reduce the risk. And that's really what the story is about. And what makes it so hard is that it's difficult most of the time to predict whether the policy measure will actually exactly have the impact that one expects. And that's where all these other factors come into it. And I should say, I used to just have here epidemiology, social and anthropological. And with COVID, I've added the ethical and the political. And I can tell you, being here where I am in China, basically, Hong Kong being part of China, I've learned a lot about politics also and how that can impact the way how you look at a virus or how you use a virus for different agendas, political agendas. So that complex background that Tony talked about before, all these different factors that are usually covered by different scientific disciplines, they need to be tackled using an integrated approach. And that's where the risk assessment or the whole range of different sciences that we always heard about already in the earlier talks and the talks afterwards. And the skill is really to bring it together in an interdisciplinary way, to conduct the research using an interdisciplinary way, and then integrate the knowledge that is being generated. And I guess the question is, where does that happen? Does that happen at the end of where the scientists work, or does it happen when the policy makers are using the information? And that's where I then brought in the risk management element, which is where the government or could also be, can also be farmers, etc., who decide on how to tackle disease risks, disease threats. And again, it's the variety of factors here that influence what policy measures are being taken. And arguably, COVID demonstrates to all of us, every person on the planet, how complex this whole system is. Yeah, and I guess then we've got the science policy interface. It's somewhere in the middle there, where what you guys or we are doing, we're generating knowledge, and how can that be used optimally to make good decisions that achieve the objectives that are considered appropriate for or optimal for society, or whatever the objectives are in the background. Now, next thing is, and this is, I think, is also very important, is, and this is looking at it, actually, I have to say a lot of what I do as an epidemiologist, I try to give policymakers ideas about what the probability of the event is of the disease outbreak, say. And that's one thing. I mean, that's something you can do with a certain degree of uncertainty. And then the other question is, what are the consequences of the event? Okay, if it happens, what's it going to do? And we've got a scale here, and I'm not going to go into detail. But the tricky bit then is the decision that one makes, the policymaker then has to make in the context of the combination of those two. And that's said here, acceptable, and what's a tolerable and what's an intolerable risk. And this is happening the whole time now with COVID. So when is it basically where you do nothing? When is it that you apply some modest interventions to reduce the risk? And finally, when is it there you're going to go to an elimination policy, i.e. lockdown and beyond? And I can tell you, that's where I live. The city is basically, in some ways, in a lockdown, and it has been for some time. It's not called lockdown, but actually through the quarantine measures, it feels like that. And on top of that, you've got a lot of uncertainty. So, I mean, it is very clear that this situation is incredibly challenging for policymaker to then integrate the knowledge and have an appreciation of the consequences that or the impact that the interventions will have. And take some risks, of course, in terms of them not working out. And just a couple of examples here. And as you all know, we've got the information for control policy, impact considerations, sickness, fatality, ethical dilemma. I think ethics is so important. Did I ever think much about it? I didn't really. I hadn't realized that Germany, for example, has an ethics council, which I didn't, and it's actually government set it up. I don't think they used very often in the context of COVID. Well, that's actually where they are conducting interdisciplinary work to bringing information, knowledge together, inform government, also in relation to when they make decisions that have impact on how many people will actually die from the disease. Economics, mental health also, and social impact, family pressure cooker, etc., and cultural and so on. And over the last, this is like I was being so naive, is this funny, can you use this disease actually for political agenda? And that's what I'm experiencing. That's what I'm experiencing now. I mean, maybe it also happens in other parts, but it definitely happens here. And I hadn't quite comprehended that and understood until a few, weeks or months ago. Yeah, and this is just we're connecting to the One Health agenda or perspective or the approach. The multiple factors that are involved, the multiple components. It needs a different approach to studying the emergence of these diseases. I am closer to the livestock production system, but actually the livestock production system is influenced by lots of other factors, people's behavior, economics, etc. Culture and so on. And social science, human behavior plays a key role in that game. Just one more slide that I want to show is in that I think maybe one good thing it has done, the situation, is that it's reminded us of the Sustainable Development Goals, which actually, they've been there for some time. And I think only not many people are aware of them. And we're now maybe becoming more conscious of the fact that these are really important, and we need to, and One Health fits in there, pandemic disease emergence, etc. And we maybe need to refine them a bit more. Companies need to consciously adopt them into the way how they run their businesses, etc. Now, I'll just stop there. Thank you very much.